As we learned in the shortcodes chapter, we don't want to be querying the Twitter API every single page load. Not only will that have a performance hit, but it won't work eventually because most APIs offer a limit to make sure that you're not abusing it. For example, Twitter offers an API limit of 150 requests per hour. So with that in mind, we need to make sure that we are caching it. In the shortcode chapter, we did a makeshift form of caching, but here we're going to take advantage of WordPress's Transient API. And what's nice about this is it allows us to set expiration dates. Now, it will store it likely in the database, so it's not always going to be there. But likely, most of the time, it will be stored in the database. And we can specify to delete it in 5 minutes. And that way, we always have up-to-date tweets. So let's work on that right now. To add a new item with transients, we do set_transient. This will accept 3 parameters. The first one is going to be the ID that will be associated with it in the database. And we'll call that recent tweets widget. The second parameter is going to be, what are we storing in there? Well, we could store tweets, but we need a more modified form. And also, I want to store the tweet count and the username in the database as well, and we'll go over why that is shortly. So for now, let's assume we're going to fill it with some data. The third parameter is going to be how long to store this before we delete it. Well, this is going to be in seconds. So if it's easier for you, you can use multiplication, and you can say 60 seconds in a minute times how many minutes? Let's say 5 minutes. So that means we are going to store the value of data in the database for 300 seconds or 5 minutes, and then that will be deleted upon the following request. So now let's get this data set up, and I'll do that right here above the for each statement. To create a new object in PHP, I can create a new std class. So let's first fill that up with the username, like so. Next, let's fill it up with the tweet count, like so. And if you're wondering why are we storing these values, you will understand shortly. Just go along with me for a moment. And then finally, we don't want to echo this out because we need to return it from this fetch tweets function. So instead, we'll say data tweets, and we'll make tweets equal to an array, and we'll add a new key to that array. So we could make it a best practice and go data tweets equals array, and make sure that we declare that first. Then we create a new key in that array and make that equal to whatever that filtered tweet equals. And we go through that over and over and over. So now let's test and see what is in data. Print r data, and then I'll die. Refresh the page, and now we have our username, the tweet count, and then a list of all of the tweets. This is exactly what we need to store in the database. So we've assigned this transient an ID, we have attached the data, and it's going to expire in 300 seconds or 5 minutes. So let's imagine the page loads for the very first time ever. This is going to run, and we call the Twitter method. And we make sure that there is a username, and then we fetch tweets. And we go to the Twitter API, we grab the necessary tweets, we fill up an object, and then we cache it in the database. Next time the page loads, it's only been a minute later, well, we can use that cached data, and we can specify that right up here within the Twitter. And let's first try to get it, and we can grab this data by using getTransient. So we'll say tweets equals getTransient, and this only requires one parameter, and that is the ID. Notice that the ID is how we reference that value. Good. So now this will either return the object or whatever value we attached in the database, or it will return false if there's nothing attached. So we can now check for that by saying if not tweets, if nothing was found, in that case we do need to fetch the tweets. So I will insert that right there. Because if false was returned, then there is nothing cached, then call the fetch tweets method and get it manually from the API. Otherwise though, we can rest assured that tweets is equal to the object we need, and we will simply return tweets. Now here, in this case, in either situation, tweets is being returned. So let's make sure that we return this value here. If there is no tweets, run fetch tweets. This is going to create the object, set the transient, then we'll return it. That will be returned to fetch tweets, and then we return that data. Otherwise, it's already cached, in which case we can just return that and never run any of this code that queries the API.